So last week I made a video about how complexity is often misunderstood in the terms of training, and I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into one of the big concepts of that video, and that concept is probably my favorite concept in training, which is simply autoregulation. So when we're looking at training methods that are auto-regulated, what we're looking for is that one or more variables is flexible, right? So as opposed to, we might have in a program a 5x5, so 5 sets of 5 with 225 pounds, that doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room. That's the program, right? So it's going to be 5 sets of 5 reps with 225 pounds. Whereas if we're looking at something with some flexibility in there, it might be 5 sets, but the reps no longer matter. It might be 3 reps, 1 set, and 4 reps another, and 6 reps another. The main thing is that it is an auto-regulated set, rather than we just do things exactly as written in the program. And just to get into it, there is a few methods I think work really, really well, and let's jump right in. The first, and probably what I use most with a lot of my clients and with a lot of my upper body work, is density sets. Basically what a density set is, I'm just going to set a timer, and within that time frame, I'm going to complete as many quality reps of a movement as possible. Now, there's so many ways that this can be broken up, of course. So let's say, again, we'll use that same 225. Let's say that I'm going to end up with a total of 22 reps in that time period. My first set, I was able to do 6. My second set, I was able to do 4. Get another few sets of 4, maybe a set of 3 and a set of 2 within that 10-minute period of time. And there's not necessarily a goal of it has to be done this far apart. It doesn't matter how many sets you do. It doesn't matter how many reps you do. What matters is that you are working hard in that period of time to get the best result, right? So I say it doesn't matter how many reps you do. It's all data. So it comes back to us as data, whether we should change a variable, whether that's moving something down or moving something up. Like if I can do 30 reps within a 10-minute period of time over 6, like maybe 5 sets of 6, it's probably time for me to move on to a heavier weight of that exercise. But again, your sets are flexible, your reps are flexible. You can choose different time, you can choose a different weight. The next is the inverse of that. That is the rep target set. And rather than using a timer, we're just going to say, hey, I want 30 reps. And I'm going to get 30 reps. And it might take me 8 minutes. It might take me 14 minutes. I'm going to get 30 reps. It might take me 8 sets. It might take me 5 sets or 6 sets. The main thing is I'm going to get the amount of reps with that weight. You can do them kind of in straight sets. You can do them in a little bit more chaotically, like, again, a bigger first set, some smaller second, third, fourth sets. The main thing is that you have that flexibility. Using RPE or RIR, there's some technical differences, but for the most part, when we're saying RPE in weightlifting, we are referring to the inverse of IRR, or reps in reserve. They're the same thing. It's just that reps in reserve, let's say I have 2 reps in reserve, and an RPE scale is a scale to 10. So an RPE 8, that's 10 minus 2, the same thing as 2 reps in reserve. So I might prescribe something at 2 sets, and we're just going to go hard until I have 2 reps left in reserve. And so that client on that given day might do 7 in one set and 6 in another, just with the thought of, I could do this 2 more times. There's a lot of different ways to use this. You could use this as, maybe I do prescribe certain sets and reps, but still aiming for, after that effort, it should be about here with 2 reps left in reserve. It could be top set and back down, which I've fallen in love with for my lower body lifts, thanks to Angus Bradley. where I choose a top single at a 7 or an 8 RPE, and then I reduce the weight. Now I know that he will often do straight sets afterwards. I just reduce the weight 10 to 20% and then hit 2 or 3 sets at an RPE that I find suitable. And that, again, all comes back as data. So if my training is really stagnant, I just have to change one of those variables. Third, or I guess that's fourth, is the AMRAP. AMRAP is just as many reps as possible, taking a lift to failure. This is usually something that I'm going to do one set, right? So I did an experiment with this with Romanian deadlifts, started at 315, and then every week I'd add 20 pounds until I got to 415. And I just saw each week, how many can I do? And each one was a stimulus. Each one was a little bit different, but all of them were based off of my ability. It wasn't me saying, I have to get X number of reps. Those reps were going to be based off of my capacity rather than what's written in a program. Next is the EMOM, or every minute on the minute training. And different ways you can use this. One is that you just be a little conservative and say, like, let's say you can do 10 chin-ups. Well, maybe you're going to do 3 on the minute and you're going to continue. Now you could do that for a certain amount of minutes. You could switch exercises every minute. There's so many ways that you could actually run this. As you start to fatigue and wear down, you could simply go, you know what, I'm going to call it. I'm going to reduce my weights. I'm going to reduce my reps, something like that. And I can't bring up EMOMs without bringing up Dent's method, which I got from my original mentor in the space, Keegan Smith. Dent's method is a marriage between density sets and every minute on the minute training. It is basically a 10-minute block of training. And this was really my first really big pull towards some auto regulation. We used to do it competitively against each other. I think he still does, but I'm not necessarily involved. But it's going to be, let's say, again, 225 on a bench press. Let's say you can do 3 reps of that. You might do singles on the minute every minute. If it turned out to be too hard, then you would have these options to either call the session, come back later to the session, reduce the weight. Singles was probably not the best idea because you could also reduce the reps. Much like you do on an EMOM, everything was pretty much set in 10 minutes because that was the standard of the competition. But it still works pretty well as a way to just spread out that fatigue. And then one thing that I thought was a little bit unique about it was if it was really easy. So let's say I did my 10 singles, my 10 D1, and I thought that was actually pretty easy. On my last set, I'd hit an AMRAP set and just do as many as I could. And then I'd have a pretty sufficient stimulus. Next is repeats. I actually don't know what the name of this method is called. I'm pretty sure that I picked it up from Will Rattel at some point. And this is, I would just choose a lift and I would do a certain amount of reps, like let's say triples, and I would repeat it over a period of time. Not a timer set of time. I would just continue to do sets of that until I could no longer hit that triple, right? So maybe it takes me 4, 5, 6 sets, whatever that may be, depending on how heavy that weight is for me. That's a decision I would make based off of how much time I have in the session, or how trashed I want to be from it, or how much total volume is in the rest of my training. Finally, we end up at velocity-based training. I will not pretend that I'm an expert at all in velocity-based training. I have used all of these in my training and in client training, and they all work really, really well. Velocity-based training, I don't necessarily have the equipment for, but again, I'm not an expert in it, but you could use the same idea where I'm not going to prescribe sets and reps as much as I want a quality of speed, right? I want a certain speed or a certain velocity to this lift, And as that velocity starts to fall off, I might cut the session right there. So that might be 3 reps, that might be 7 reps, that might be 10 reps, depending on that velocity. Again, not my area of expertise. It's something I plan on playing with more in the future, and I'm interested primarily from that idea. That being said, I have tried some variations of velocity-based training. Again, this one's from Keegan Smith. This was the 20 and 40 method, and basically we did this on bench press, squat, front squat, and I branched it out to a few different lifts. I've done variations on dips, did like a 30 and 60 with snatches, but I'm sorry, it was 20 and 60. But the idea is simply that you have to maintain velocity over those reps in order to fit into the time, which is 40 seconds, right? So for instance, you might do a bench press with 165 in order to get 20 reps in 40 seconds. You can't pause that much. Bench press is more forgiving than, say, squats. Squats were a lot harder to get that timing because it takes a little bit more time to squat than it does to bench. But yes, each one of these, as opposed to the idea of a straight set, because your weight's going to change on this, right? Your sets, weights, reps can all change on this. All of these are flexible in at least one area, as opposed to going into the idea of a traditional, we're going to do 3 sets of 10, or 3 sets of 3, or 4 sets of 8, 2 sets of 5. It becomes very flexible in at least one area. And I think that's super valuable because every day you have a different daily readiness, you have different levels of fatigue, and oftentimes when you're doing something like RPE or any sort of auto-regulated training, one of the concerns that people have is like, that's just giving people an excuse to train very softly. And while that might lead to them training a little bit more softly some of the time, that's for days that they don't feel good. For days that they feel great, they can absolutely send it. My famous story is that this year, I did not eat well, I did not sleep well, I did not do anything well on my birthday, my 33rd birthday. And the next day, I was so sick that my clients sent me home. And all I did was sleep all day. And then the next day, I had the best front squat session that I had ever had. And it was rep targets. And the next week, I was like, well, after being sick, I should be able to completely crush that this week that I feel healthy. And I did worse in every conceivable measure. I just happened to have more in me that day after being sick, probably because I actually slept all day. I got very sufficient rest. The daily readiness is going to change. What you can do from day to day is going to change. What matters is that you are able to train hard within your ability to auto-regulate. Some people, it's going to be all over the place. Some people, it's going to be very small, almost unnoticeable. I'm usually fairly unnoticeable, but there are days where it's like, oh, I just don't quite have it. And then there's other days where it's like, we really got it. But I'm pretty steady throughout. But the more external factors you have outside the weight room, the more necessary this is. That could be total life stress, right? So that's job, family, friends, finances, everything. If you're an athlete, you might not have the overall energy to do something. If you're not sleeping, if you've been sick, these things are all going to affect that level of readiness. If you're spreading your time between multiple things, it might change. Like I did a lot more of this once I started running a lot because this combined with all the running I was doing and all the jiu-jitsu I was doing was just a little too much for me. And you find over time, what's the method that's going to work for me where I'm at this point in time. Not always, but at this point in time. And your ability to auto-regulate in your training is going to help you to get better and better for years to come.